center with your host, DC Radical One.
Greetings, friends, family, foes, and enemies. I am your host, DC Radical One, and you have entered the center. Shout out to our wonderful producer, Cindy Ashby. You can check us out on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and iHeartRadio at On the Wake Up Radio. Also, you can check us out at otwtube.com. That's otwtube.com. And I apologize for being a little late. Had a minor technical issue that was indeed good old-fashioned human error. So let's see, brother, you got ripped off. It's in the building. Remind me, brother, to cut the intro out since you said the mic was live. And I see brother Elijah. So I see people watching, but I only see a handful of people in the chat, which is interesting. I know Thursday's kind of normally not a day for the center. It is an important show. And excuse me, I am struggling with my voice a little bit. We are not the reason we're not is I didn't know, because I got a lot of videos and stuff, and I didn't know if it would mess up the stream. We should be, but we're not. That's a good question. Probably could. Let's see. Could I load it up? Yeah. Yeah, that's not worth doing. You know what? I was going to do that, but nah, I'm not going to do that. We're just going to be on tonight on, we're not going to be on Instagram tonight. We're just going to be on YouTube. Maybe next week. Because there might be a follow-up to this, because this is going to be an ongoing thing. Or what I might even do is edit this and then send it to YouTube. So anyway, greetings to brother, you got ripped off. Greetings to brother Elijah. We have almost as many likes as we have people in the building. So I appreciate, actually, do we have more likes? Oh, okay. Yeah, one time we had more likes than we had people in the building. So I appreciate that. So this is what we're going to do. As you all know, I've been talking about the ongoing war in Western Asia, as they call it, the Middle East, and the possibilities of it spinning out of control into a global conflict. I've been talking about this seemingly since last October. So for about a year. Yeah, about a year. Now we're at a point where the warfare between Israel and Iran is open. There's no way for people to not talk about this possibly expanding into something wider. And now Israel has upped the stakes to the point where Iran has decided to openly retaliate. Now, we're not going to go through the whole scenario of how we got here, right? Most people generally like to point to, October 7th of last year. But in reality, this conflict started with the founding of Israel. Like, just plain and simple. That's when the conflict started. the attack on October 7th was the latest act of resistance, as the Palestinians would say, to the ongoing. I mean, where they live is basically an open air prison, and Gaza and the West Bank and all that. So the October 7th thing was like the latest in a form of resistance. So it's very much like unto when people in the 1960s, when people around the world started to see what was going on in America, right? And you got to see it on television and, beamed across the world. And so people who didn't live in America and just heard about what America was, how great it was, and this and this and that, so this racial conflict started seeing, Black people being beaten, and they started hearing about Malcolm X, and Malcolm X started going across the world, and then all of a sudden Malcolm X is assassinated, and then they start seeing, the rise of the Panthers, and they start hearing about Martin Luther King. They see Martin Luther King being beaten in places like Chicago and all this stuff. And then, the rest of the world was like, oh, we didn't know about that part of America, right? So just think of it that way when you hear about this Gaza conflict and what Israel is doing and all this stuff. Before they do a show goon, before they brother Crow. Think of it that way, right? So in the 60s, people didn't understand what Black people were going through and had been going through. It's like people were literally hundreds of years late, right? So in this case, people just 70 years or so late. A lot of people, So they hear about October 7th and all this stuff, and they're like, oh my God, this and that, and blah, 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 blah. Now this conflict precedes all of that. So what we're going to start with is a document and then a video. Now, brother, you got ripped off, sent me this document. We're going to go through it. And the document basically says, oh, thank you, brother. Appreciate it. That I hadn't even selected any music. I had received some relatively good news lately. And like when I say lately, like today. So I've been thinking about that. And let's see. Oh, okay. Let's see. Hold on. What that is. There we go. That's today's music. Let me adjust it. All right, so there we go. That's today's music. Well, I try to get there right amount of. Oops. Well, I'm still getting myself together. Before the do raw eye to white. Yeah, no, I adjusted it. It's not still loud, right? That we good on the sound? Okay, cool. Because I was told, plus right now, I'm not gonna lie, my voice is struggling a little bit. Anyway, for those just joining us, I'm your host, DC Radical 1. You can follow me on Instagram at dc.radical1, on Twitter at dcradical_ONE, on OTW2, which is a free speech Black-owned platform at DC Radical 1, all one word. And you can donate via Cashapp at $DC Radical 1. And you can email me at dc.radical_1 at protonmail.com. Before they straight black private brother Kevin. So those are the ways to follow me on social media and to contact me if you need to contact me. By the way, I forgot to mention this. 2 things. Number 1, last time I checked anyway, earlier today, we are 7 people away from the number needed for monetization. We pass all other thresholds. We need 7 people to subscribe. So, hold on for a minute. So if you know 7 more people or 2 more people that you can send it to, that you can get to subscribe, 1 or 2 people, please do that. In fact, I'm going to call some people, call some relatives tomorrow, get them to subscribe. So hopefully by tomorrow we'll need 4 or 5 more people. Also, this Saturday, Brother Genie, and I forgot to put it on the community chat, so it'll go up tomorrow. Brother Genie will be speaking at, he'll be beginning his tour. All right, greetings to Sister Nita. And you said you're gonna subscribe. Appreciate you. Thank you. You know, every subscriber counts now, because we are like on the threshold. You know, we're on the goal line. What Dr. Collar would say, we're on the 1-inch line. And I don't know, because sometimes I've been noticing, I've never seen this on YouTube. Like sometimes I look and like 2 people have unsubscribed. I was like, man, people don't even unsubscribe on YouTube. They just ignore you once they subscribe. So I don't know if they like, all right, he on the 1-inch line, then move him back. You know what I'm saying? To use a football analogy. So anyway, Brother Genie will be speaking at eLife, which is located at 9033. They get a lot of free promo, by the way. But anyway, at 9033 Central Avenue, Capitol Heights, Maryland, 20743. This Saturday, October 5th at 5 p.m. And this is the beginning of his tour, national tour. And October 12th, he will be in another city. And I believe October 19th, he'll be in another city. So I'm going to put that on the community tab. I have posted it multiple times on Instagram, but I haven't posted it anywhere else. So I'm going to put that on the community tab in the morning. In fact, I'm going to set my phone to remind me, because I've been putting it on the community tab for 3 days and it's still not there. So there's no one to blame but me for that. That is my blunder. A continued blunder. So it is a free event at eLife. It will not be live streamed, because if we're talking to the people, straight talk, it's a community family meeting, right? A black reset, as we are going seemingly inevitably at this point towards a one, African world revolution, and 2, stumbling toward global conflict. So that's what we will talk about today. So first things first, we have a document that Brother You Got Ripped Off sent me from 10 years ago that we never talked about. So we're going to read the Smith-Mundt Modernization Public Law, which was passed by Congress December 28th, 2012. And you're going to ask me, this is a logical question, Brother DC, why are we starting with a law from, what's that, over 10 years ago, almost 12 years ago? Why? What does this have to do with the cost of tea in China? So we're going to read this act. In fact, let me take myself off so we can see it clearly. And after we read this act, we're going to show a video. And once we read the act and we see the video, we'll have an understanding of why I'm starting with this in order to move forward with the discussion, right? So let's get into it. All right. And then we're ending with something very important, because we're going somewhere here. Now, let us get started. It says Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, Public Law 112-239. All right. Also, HR 4310. says to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2013 for military activities of the Department of Defense, for military construction, and for defense activities of the Department of Energy, to prescribe military personnel for personnel strengths for such fiscal year and other purposes. This is section 1078. Dissemination abroad of information about the United States. All right. Now, it says United States Information and Education Exchange Act of 1948, section 501 of the United States Information and Education Exchange Act of 1948 is amended to read as following. So again, this is a long-standing bill that gets reappropriated and keep adding to it, and you add sections to it, and so forth, so on. So it says the Secretary and the Broadcasting Board of Governors are authorized to use funds appropriated or otherwise made available for public diplomacy information programs to provide for the preparation, dissemination, and use of information intended for foreign audiences abroad about the United States, its people, its policies, through press, publications, radio, motion pictures, the internet, and other information media, including social media, and through information centers, instructors, and other direct and indirect means of communication. Let's stop right here. This is a long, winding way of saying we're utilizing all of these means for propaganda purposes. This is just authorizing propaganda. This is plain and simple, right? It doesn't say it's propaganda, but it's propaganda. And what are they using? They're using the press. Wait, excuse me? Yes, they're using the press. What else are they using? They're using social media. They're using publications. They're using radio. They're using motion pictures and the internet and any other media to disseminate information about the United States and its policies. So this is to influence how people see the United States of America. Now, this is important because this is letting us know, and we've talked about it earlier about censorship. So what goes along, censorship and propaganda go hand in hand, because what you want to do is the things that you want to eliminate one side of the story and prop up another side of the story, right? And so this is part of the United States government law. Now let's go, that was section A. Let's go to section B. Except as provided in paragraph 2, the Secretary and the Broadcasting Board of Governors may, upon request and reimbursement of the reasonable costs incurred in fulfilling such a request, make available in the United States motion pictures, films, video, audio, and other materials disseminated abroad to this act, the United States International Broadcasting Act of 1994, the Radio Broadcasting to Cuba Act, or the Television Broadcasting to Cuba Act, right? Any reimbursement pursuant to this paragraph shall be credited to the applicable appropriate account of the Department of State, good old State Department, and the Broadcasting Board of Governors as appropriate. The Secretary and the Broadcasting Board shall issue necessary regulations to A, establish procedures to maintain such material, B, for reimbursement of reasonable costs incurred, in fulfilling a request for such material. C, to ensure that the person seeking to release of such material have secured and paid for necessary United States rights and licenses. With respect to material dissemination abroad, for the effective date of Section 1078 of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2013. Right? Now, we're going to go down a little bit because they're going to talk about the archivists and so forth. So it says, nothing in this section may be construed to require the Secretary of Broadcasting Board to make material disseminated abroad available in any format other than in the format disseminated abroad. Right? Now, we got the Foreign Relations Authorization Act going way back to the 80s and so forth. So we're going to get past all of this. And we want to understand one thing. The United States has an arm that disseminates propaganda around the world. But also here in America, as I said, through all of these means, and even in Hollywood, right? And social media. Now, you're going to say, okay, DC, that's an old act. And how is it relevant today? BB to me to a Safo. And let's see, BB for ODA to RBG. And Sister Nina says, hey, they say that this stuff is fake news. Well, yeah, we're about to see we're about to see some fake news. You know, Mr. Trump always talks about fake news. BB for ODA to Sister Vanessa. Now, we just read all that, all right? It sounds like a lot of legalese and gobbledygook. I'm going to show you a video that just breaks down what that meant in video form. So what we're going to do, we're going to watch this 4-minute clip that I got from, shout out to Al Jazeera, right? You know what I'm saying? Eventually, when this stuff starts getting monetized, we'll have less of these videos because I don't want to give away all my monetization when that time comes to those people, right? But we're going to watch this 4-minute clip where they break down not just the Department of Defense, but also the CIA in Hollywood and how they work hand in hand, right? So, y'all know how we do. We sit around and we pause the music and we play the video and then we discuss it. So here we go.
Watch any big budget war movie or take in a spy thriller, and you could walk away not knowing just how much your movie experience was shaped by the Pentagon or CIA. However, a trove of official documents obtained under US Freedom of Information laws and published this year detail the dealings between filmmakers and intelligence officials at Langley, Virginia, the CIA headquarters.
Probably the best known are Zero Dark 30 and Argo, but they've also assisted the television show Homeland.
How do we deal with homegrown violent jihadists?
They've also assisted Alias.
You work for the very enemy you thought you were fighting.
24.
Tell me where the device is!
A CBS series called The Agency.
Then he slit his throat.
They assisted a film called The Sum of All Fears, starring Ben Affleck.
Captain Jack Ryan, CIA. Charlie Wilson's War is a really good example where they maintain the idea that, are we really doing the right thing by arming the Mujahideen, the forerunners of the Al-Qaeda terrorist organization in Afghanistan in the 1980s? They kind of question that in a kind of jokey way, like the last caption in the film Charlie Wilson's War is something like, we came, we saw, but then we mucked up the end game, or some joke, you know. It's like, no, that's not what you did actually, and you know it because the original script and the original book that you base this on doesn't say that. You armed terrorists in a really horrific conflict. It's the whole organization behind it, at a systematic level. And that turned Charlie Wilson's War into this, saccharine, benign movie.
Throughout the 1990s, the CIA worked with Hollywood very specifically on movies that portrayed the CIA as sort of a heroic force protecting America. Most of the movies were based on Tom Clancy books, actually. So you had A Hunt for Red October and that entire franchise. You know, the lead character, Jack Ryan, is this like super heroic figure, and he's like constantly, you know, taking down bad guys and saving America, saving the world from various threats, whether it's Islamic terrorism or the IRA or ultimately white supremacists.
Between them, the CIA and the US Department of Defense have had varying levels of input, from simply clarifying points for authenticity to actually writing parts of scripts on more than 1,800 movies and TV shows. When it comes to influencing filmmakers, shaping the story, the Pentagon is usually in a stronger negotiating position than the CIA. Because of the hardware at its disposal, it can shut down a movie before a scene is ever shot.
The Department of Defense is actually a much more powerful player in the entertainment industry for basically financial reasons. The Department of Defense has expensive toys. They have submarines, they have aircraft carriers, they have tanks, and they have the personnel to operate each of those things. So if a filmmaker wants to make a war movie, they often will approach the Department of Defense and basically ask to borrow that equipment. And the Department of Defense will say, maybe, but can I see your script? And they will either say, this is great, we love the way that the military is portrayed in this, we will go ahead and collaborate with you. Or they may say, we hate the way that we're portrayed and refuse to participate.
When the Pentagon does agree to support a film, there can be some scripting strings attached. And the Vietnam War is clearly a sore point. In The Hulk, a reference to a US operation that poisoned Vietnamese farmland was removed. And in the Bond film Tomorrow Never Dies, a suggestion that the US did not win the war was cut out. In Iron Man, a reference to soldier suicides was removed, again at the Pentagon's insistence. The CIA's presence in Hollywood is harder to detect. It goes back to the early days of the Cold War and was designed to counter a propaganda effort coming out of the Soviet Union. The CIA placed undercover agents in major studios where they monitored left-wing screenwriters and directors. This was at the height of Cold War paranoia, and Hollywood was under the scrutiny of the US Congress.
Is investigating alleged communist influence and infiltration in the moving picture industry.
The agency started influencing scripts. One senior executive at Paramount Pictures, working covertly for the CIA, described how, to counter what the Soviets were saying about the persecution of African Americans, quote, well-dressed Negroes, unquote, would be planted in certain films.
Now, look, is there any doubt and placed in major media in America and thus around the world? I mean, you got documentation. You know what I always say, and I stole this from somebody else, by the way. Documentation beats conversation. And if any black people want to argue or debate it, it's right there. That they place well-dressed Negroes, as they say, in movies, to counter what was being said about our oppression. Which means if they were doing that, then that means that they will also place degenerate Negroes to make us look bad around the world, right? Because if they can make you look good in order to counter the fact that you're being oppressed, then they can make you look bad in order to say that the oppression is warranted. Oh, my bad, brother, you got ripped off. I ain't even see it. Right, you got ripped off with the $5 super chat. Says, oh, and don't forget who was president and signed HR 4310 into law. Barack Insane Obama, aka Barry Soweto. Right. Which, I mean, we're not even gonna get into Mr. Obama, right? That's just a whole nother story. I just put it like this: if we haven't figured out Mr. Obama yet, and I know we haven't because of what's going on, then we can't be mad at them for running the same play with Miss Imhoff, right? Kamala Imhoff. And y'all know I don't recommend other people's stuff, and I don't recommend people that I don't particularly like, right? But I call, what's the woman's name? Candace Owens. I call her a broken clock. You know why? Because, you know, broken clock, they say, is right twice a day. She has dug into Miss Imhoff's family history and gone down the rabbit hole. And one day, maybe I'll take a clip from that and just put it up. I mean, she'll probably, I don't know, maybe she'll take it down for copyright or whatever. Maybe. I don't know. But that clip is worth seeing because she has stumbled upon something and she doesn't even realize what she stumbled upon. So now I wanted to shape the discussion with that because what we're going to talk about as we talk about what's going on in the quote unquote Middle East or Western Asia is you're going to hear it from the mainstream media. They're trying to shape a narrative as if there's two things. One, Israel is under attack for no reason. That's the first narrative you're going to hear. Two, you're going to hear that Israel is winning, just rolling over their opponents. Three, you're also going to hear Israel claiming to be a victim at the same time. Right? Now, all of these things are not possible. And then the fourth thing you're going to hear is that this thing isn't as out of control as it appears. Right? Now, what's crazy is that these things are just all contradictory. And I was watching a video the other day and I forgot to put that up. They have a part of Israel's doctrine is escalation or escalating to de-escalate. Now, I just want y'all to take a moment to think about that. Escalation and de-escalation are terms that are the opposite. So to do something to attempt to achieve the opposite effect doesn't even make any sense. But that's an official Israeli government doctrine. Greetings to Lee Clinton, Brother Lee. And so when you have people who are using Orwellian doublespeak like that, it just shows you the type of people we're dealing with. By the way, bro, you got ripped off. Don't forget, even though I got a lot of stuff to cover, 10:15 is the cutoff, no matter what. If we finish or not, that's the cutoff. And also, I do plan to come on tomorrow at 9 o'clock for SBL talk. I don't know what the subject matter is going to be, but I'm trying to get into some type of rhythm. So we are going to do SBL talk tomorrow. So now that we have set up everything and taken, I guess, I don't even know how long, we got to break out our map. Because again, this is really part of a series of discussions that we've had. The reason I want to break out the map, because they're going to tell you on the news that Israel is just going to roll over Iran And if Israel's not going to roll over Iran, then at least Israel and America can roll over Iran. So I just want to break out the map so we can see what exactly we're dealing with when we're talking about rolling over Iran, right? See this little small piece of land right here? That's Israel. And y'all let me know if y'all can see that with the cursor and everything. Right? North of Israel is Lebanon. So right now, Israel is fighting Lebanon, or fighting Hezbollah in Lebanon, and thus fighting Lebanon, because if you invade a sovereign country's territory, you're fighting that country, right? So they're kind of fighting like 1.5 people, because Hezbollah is kind of its own thing within Lebanon. Now, within that, Syria is also on the side of Lebanon, but Syria has been under attack from Israel and the United States for years now. The only reason that the Syrian government hasn't been destroyed is because way over here, not on our map currently. I guess we can make our map smaller. Can we make our map smaller? All right, here we go. Way over here. Actually, it's still not on the map. Oh, there we go. Here's a part of Russia. So Russia has been propping up Syria, even though Syria's been under attack, because of course, as we know, when we did our 7 countries video way back with the general, he told us that that was one of the countries they wanted to destroy. Now we actually look at the 7 countries because we got the map. Libya, they destroyed. The government of Egypt is basically under the control of the West. If I'm not mistaken, I think even Sudan might have been on that list. I should have loaded that video. Anyway, and Syria is there, and of course, Iraq. Now, if we zoom back in, this is Iran. This is Iraq. This is Israel. Right? Now, mind you, we were fighting here, right? Iraq for 20 years and accomplished nothing. Now they want to tell you that we need to protect Israel, who is currently invading Lebanon and killing the people here in Gaza and the West Bank for no reason other than they want to. And then Mr. Netanyahu wants us to go and then fight to go. Now, mind you, Jordan, they are a friend of Israel. Because this is what I found out. This is what I didn't know, right? Jordan is ruled by Bedouins, but the people are Arab. So here's what you need to know about how these things work. When we see not all the time, but a lot of times when we see these governments, and you hear about a government that is like in bed with the West and they're against their own people, right? And the Saddam thing was the same way. What's usually happening is usually that person is a member of a minority ethnic group, and the West has come and propped that ethnic group over the people. So then when you try to figure out, well, why is this dude doing this and this and that? Why is he working with the West? And why are the people trying to revolt against him? Or why is he killing his own people? That's what's usually happening. So what I found out is, I think it's King Hussein II of Jordan. I think, because I remember the old King Hussein, and he's been there for a long time. He's part of a minority group, so that's why he's siding with the West in order for them to prop him up and he can stay in power, right? So Israel and Jordan are in bed together. Egypt because of what the U.S. has done, is kind of still in bed with them. But they're kind of, they're kind of shaky right now because they're trying to feel the way the wind is blowing. Saudi Arabia is just totally in bed with the U.S., right? Interestingly enough, Turkey up here is trying to join BRICS. Turkey's a part of NATO. If Turkey leaves NATO to join BRICS and then leaves the NATO military unit and flips, because here's the thing about Turkey. This would make Turkey interesting. And let me move back a little bit. All right. Here's what makes Turkey interesting. Technically speaking, Turkey is part of Asia and part of Europe. Also, Turkey they're mostly racially, for the most part, white, but they're also mostly Muslim. So Turkey is literally just on both sides just by the nature of the people and the culture and the geography. So they kind of play both. They just play both sides of the fence because they're on both sides of the fence. If Turkey suddenly switches away from NATO and joins the BRICS, which includes Iran, Russia, and China, and here we go, we got Russia up here, and we over there, we got China. If that happens, then suddenly what happens is that a lot of trade changes, right? A lot of access, the access the U.S. military has to these places like Syria, they have, you know what I'm saying, in Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Iraq. Suddenly, you may not have free access, right? Now, so that's why Turkey is important and what they got going on is important. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you have Iran, who is friends with Russia and China. Now, for context, as powerful as the United States is, right? And there's no doubt the United States is powerful. There are approximately 350 million people in America, right? There's 150 million people in Russia. There are approximately 90 million people in Iran. There's a billion people in China, right? Like, everybody seems to forget this part. And China has its own interests, but China they are just allies of Russia. Like, they're like two peas in a pod. If anyone tries to tell you that somehow they're going to separate China from Russia, they're dreaming. All right. So if you look at somebody in some general such and such, or this person comes up to you and tries to tell you that, or you turn on the news and you're like, they're dreaming. That's just not going to happen right now, right? Because it doesn't benefit China to do that. They're just allies. They're allies. They're linked economically. That's just what it is, right? That doesn't mean people can't change, but it's just highly unlikely. Okay. Now, I think I have covered all the. Oh no, I have not. Now, in addition, I forgot. Like I said, we got Hezbollah in Lebanon, but down here in Yemen, we have the Houthis. Now, why are the Houthis important? The Houthis are important because let's look where they are. This is the Red Sea. This is the Gulf of Aden. This is Saudi Arabia. Ships come in here and take oil out of here and then come around Africa and go to Asia and to the West, right? If you control this area, you can cause a lot of problems for a lot of people. Now you're gonna say, well, DC, there's another area of water here, and Saudi Arabia is here, and why don't I just? Oh, because Iran is right there controlling the Persian Gulf. You see how this works? So lately, weirdly enough, one of the things, because, and we'll get to it, of course, Iran responded with 180 missiles, some of them hypersonic, to what Israel had been doing earlier. The idea that's being floated right now, they're literally discussing it right now, and for all I know, because I don't have anything on the monitor, they could be responding right now. One of the things that the U.S. is talking about is, one of the things that Israel's talking about is attacking Iran's nuclear and oil infrastructure. Here's the problem with that. Number one, okay, let's say that happens, right? Let's just say that happens. Again, the Houthis are here, right? Iran is here. The idea that you're just going to then just escape with goods and oil and things like that through here is just not going to happen. Which means everything will have to be rerouted to another direction. But again, this is Syria. Remember, Syria's down with them people. So the idea that you can't be attacked here is not really realistic. So that means what they're saying is they're willing to attack Iran's infrastructure and raise the cost of oil and gas with winter coming up to fulfill their political ambitions. Now, y'all tell me if that makes any sense and is beneficial to anyone other than Israel, and it ain't even beneficial to Israel. Now, here's another thing. Remember, go back to my map again. While we're talking about this, Russia supplies gas to here, right? To the west. Winter is coming up. Russia is an ally of Iran. Let's say Russia decides, you know what? Let me just turn the gas off and y'all try to get your gas from somewhere else as winter starts. Yeah, I mean, how long are the people in NATO willing to let their people freeze before they say, you know what, this is not a good idea? So these are just some of the ramifications that can take place from the possible retaliation. Well, no, the likely retaliation that's being discussed, right? B48 777 9311. So now that we got our map, let's look at what's currently. No, my bad. No, what we're going to do is we're going to go back. We're going to listen to Mr. Netanyahu, because Mr. Netanyahu came to America and stood before Congress and told Congress long before what's going on now. This was what, maybe 2 months ago? If I ripped off after I played the clip, you'll know. He told Americans that you're going to war with Iran way before Iran did any of this. So let me load up that clip. Y'all know how we do. We're gonna pause our wonderful music, and we're gonna listen to somebody that I can't stand, but we're gonna listen to him anyway, Mr. Netanyahu.
Crossroads of history. Our world is in upheaval. In the Middle East, Iran's axis of terror confronts America, Israel, and our Arab friends. This is not a clash of civilizations. It's a clash between barbarism and civilization. It's a clash between those who glorify death and those who sanctify life. For the forces of civilization to triumph, America and Israel must stand together. Because when we stand together, something very simple happens. We win, they lose. And my friends, I came to assure you today of one thing: we will win. I thank President Biden for his heartfelt support for Israel after the savage attack on October 7th. He rightly called Hamas sheer evil. He dispatched 2 aircraft carriers to the Middle East to deter a wider war. And he came to Israel to stand with us during our darkest hour, a visit that will never be forgotten. President Biden and I have known each other for over 40 years. I want to thank him for half a century of friendship to Israel and for being, as he says, a proud Zionist. Actually, he says a proud Irish-American Zionist.
Now, that is Mr. Netanyahu telling us. Now, I want y'all to think about something, right? If y'all remember this, if you were here. Remember, we talked about 9/11. Y'all remember that, right? Do y'all remember what the Israelis that they caught who were filming 9/11 and dancing said? They said, your problems are our problems. And our problems are the Palestinians. Does that not sound exactly like what Mr. Netanyahu said? Now remember, that was some random, as they told us, Israeli youth 6 years ago. But yet they're telling us the same thing now. And we still believe it. Now, here's the thing, and Brother RBG alluded to it. Israel helped prop up Hamas against the Palestinian Authority and the PLO back in the day. And now, Hamas is just basically just taking over the revolutionary position that the PLO took over, right? And another thing is that they never talk about is that they had intelligence that something was going to happen on October, and they didn't do anything about it. So they let the attack happen in order to be able to do what they wanted to do anyway. They'll never talk about that part, do they? Right? Think about it. You have intelligence that an attack is coming, and you let the attack happen so that you can wage the war that you wanted to wage anyway, in order for you to get the United States in the war so you can fight Iran. Because when you had the 7-country doctrine that you had way back 24 years ago, Iran was the country that you couldn't get to back then because America couldn't get out of Iraq. They couldn't win that war. Yeah, so this goes all the way back to 9/11, right? See, people forget that part of the equation. Those 7 countries that the general talked about, and I played the clip in other discussions, those were Israel's enemies. Those weren't America's enemies. In the late 90s, nobody discussing any problems that when Clinton was in office, nobody was discussing any problems that we had with. I mean, yeah, there were problems with, let's say, Libya, but it wasn't like, okay, we got to just like eradicate that country. Man, nobody was saying that publicly. Nobody was like, man, you know, we gotta. I mean, those things weren't really. They weren't high on the radar. But obviously, in the back channels, they were being discussed because here we are, after the fact, right? So let's move up to now and talk about what's going on now, real quick. Let's get into some of these articles. All right, right now. Oh, yeah, I gotta talk about this. Can I talk about this? Yeah. I'm kidding. All right, how do I get this off of here? All right. Here we go. Now, recently, Israel killed Nasrallah, one of the main spokesman and main leader of Hezbollah, right? But here's the part they don't talk about. Hezbollah leader agreed to ceasefire hours before his assassination, Lebanese foreign minister said. Now, here's the thing. Nasrallah is actually the second leader that they killed after the person verbally agreed to a ceasefire. So what does that tell you? That's telling us that they're killing the people because they don't want the war to end. They want the main thing that Netanyahu and Israel wants is for this war to be between America and Iran. And you're like, well, wait a minute, DCU. Israel's doing the fighting right now. Yes, Israel is doing the fighting right now. But the reason they want America to fight Iran is very simple. Israel has about 9 million people. Iran has 90 million people. You understand what I'm saying? Those 9 million people are not going to defeat those 90 million people. I don't care how much of a technological advantage they have, because why not? You say, all right, well, first of all, let's go back to our map. And because we got to understand what we're talking about here. That little piece of land is Israel. The people above them, they consider their enemies. That's Lebanon. The people over there, slightly to the northeast, is Syria. They consider them enemies. Iraq is half controlled by Iran. There's no way that these little people over here are going to make it through here to get to here. That's never going to happen. Now you say, well, they could go through here and then come here and then they have, that's never going to happen. You understand what I'm saying? So that country cannot militarily defeat this country by itself. But you know what they can do? They can get your Congress to send your sons and daughters over there to get killed. Right? That's just how that's how this works. Now, that's why this discussion is important, because as we talked about earlier, that's why I'm gonna have to put this all in a playlist. They passed a law for a draft. You only pass a law for a draft when you're what? Expecting a war. And because you need somebody to fight the war, that's why you pass the law for the draft. But again, we don't, if we're being completely honest, there's no U.S. interest here, right? You got Saudi Arabia, that they got oil, you got interest there because of the oil, right? But you don't have any interest here. You really don't have a reason to fight Iran, right? If you had a reason to fight Iran, you had a reason to fight Iran in the 70s, right? Now, we all remember the Iran hostage crisis. But what happened during the Iran hostage crisis? Well, Jimmy Carter was trying to negotiate. But while Jimmy Carter was trying to negotiate, Ronald Reagan's people were telling them to keep the hostages until the election. And then after the election, they would free the hostages and you would get some weapons or whatever the case may be, right? And they made that deal. And then, as we know later on, with the whole Iran-Contra scandal, you're feeding weapons to Iran, you're feeding weapons to the Contras, you're bringing drugs into the U.S. and starting the crack epidemic here. So the reason why I talk about international politics is because I know from lived experience that these things do affect people here, and we never know what type of backdoor deals are being used and how that stuff is going to be used against us, right? Not to mention that this thing can go totally out of control, as we'll show at the end of this discussion. Now, let's get back to Mr. Nasrallah. That's where I was, right? Now, let's go here. It says Hezbollah agreed to a ceasefire hours before its leader Hassan Nasrallah was assassinated in an Israel airstrike on Beirut. Lebanese Foreign Minister Abdullah Abu Habib said today. The sensational quote unquote claim came during an interview with Christian Amanpour on CNN. Now, I find this interesting that they call it sensational because, again, this isn't the first time that someone, I think last time it was Hamas, agreed to a ceasefire and then the person was killed. So this is, they saying this sensational, like this ain't new. This is kind of becoming a trend. It's kind of like, in fact, if you think about it, it's kind of like Libya. Like, Libya had been blacklisted by the U.S. for a long time. When the whole Al Qaeda thing broke out, basically, Gaddafi was kind of looking at them like, all right, there's another rival that I don't need. Maybe I'll kind of work with the U.S. to deal with this problem. And then next thing you know, they decided to kill him. So this whole agreeing to a ceasefire, or let me maybe try to work out a deal with my enemies or things like that people be doing, yeah, that's kind of the precursor for getting dead. So if we see it get to the point where there are no more negotiations, or Iran or whoever is like, you can't trust the Americans, they're right. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like if you want to keep breathing, agreeing to ceasefires and agreeing to work together doesn't seem to be the way to keep breathing. I don't know what the other suggestion is. I'm just saying the history thus far, if you are an Arab or Persian Muslim or whatever the case may be, working with the U.S. kinda is not a good idea, or agreeing to a ceasefire, or having to sit down with America, or all of that stuff. It's not ending well for people. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that we don't want peace. Yes, I want peace. I don't want everybody, people get killed for no reason. You know what I'm saying? Because this thing can get out of control. But I'm just saying, I don't really know how the peace thing is going to work when every time one side seems to agree to peace, they get blown up. That's all I'm saying. This is not how peace works. You don't have peace by blowing up people after they say, yeah, man, all right, peace. I'm just saying. Now, anyway, the Lebanese prime minister also said he heard the U.S. Special Envoy for the Middle East, Moss Hochstein. Wait, hold up. The envoy for the Middle East name is Moss Hochstein. Well, we know whose side he on. But anyway, was in the process of being dispatched to Lebanon to negotiate a temporary ceasefire before the assassination took place. Now, hold up. Wait a minute. Now, check this out. Think about what he said. The Lebanese prime minister said he heard that U.S. Special Envoy Moss Hochstein was in the process of being dispatched to Lebanon to negotiate a temporary ceasefire. So, you know what that means? If that's the case, that means that the U.S. didn't know about the assassination. Because why in the world would you send your, unless they lying, why would you send your ambassador to a war zone to agree to a deal and they blowing up the person that you're supposed to be agreeing to the deal with? You see what I'm saying? Now, this is allegedly America's ally. Will have them out here looking crazy, talking about, yeah, we're agreeing to a deal, and then kill the man while you on the plane, or packing up your clothes to come over here. I mean, the people in the United States need to really look at this so-called ally and look at what's going on, because this is, man, you talk about duplicity. Anyway, however, Lebanese journalist Rania Khaled told the Morning Star that Mr. Nasrallah has said on many occasions that he will only agree to a ceasefire if Israel ended its war on the Palestinians in Gaza. Well, that's what negotiations are for, right? Like, think about it. The destruction, they have stated that the destruction of their Muslim brothers in Gaza is why there's beef, right? So, if you're going to negotiate a ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel, you stop murdering our people is obviously going to be part of that negotiation, because that's why we fight. Nobody else wants to do it. Nobody else wants to do nothing. Nobody else, from their perspective, nobody else is Muslim enough to fight for their Muslim brother, because part of Islam is, according to Prophet Muhammad, right? It's not DC. DC ain't making it up, but it's Prophet Muhammad said a Muslim wants for his brother what he wants for himself. So one of the things you don't want is for your brother to get killed, because you want to breathe and live and have a long, healthy life, right? So the idea that just because he said, hey, it can't be no peace as long as they're killing my people, I mean, that's a perfectly logical point of view to take. That's the point of view I would take, right? Now, if there's some black people somewhere being killed and somebody say, hey, DC, I want to have peace with you and your people that believe in your ideology, but I want to keep killing people in Haiti or the Congo or Louisiana or where, wherever the black people being killed, because we're being killed everywhere. They like, but I want to be cool with you, but I do want to kill black people in this place. No, it's not no. What are you talking about? No, it's not no negotiation. No, part of the negotiation is you stop killing my people. That's where that's where it starts. It starts right there. Like, so the idea that you saying I want you to stop killing my people is some type of irrational position. It's just insane. I don't even. This is crazy. Like, what are we talking about here? Is you not killing my people a bad idea or an irrational point of negotiation? Like, this just shows that literally the only thing they have on their mind is genocide. Anyway, you got ripped off. Said, I hope South Africa is paying attention to how Israel treats its enemies, even more attention to how it treats its so-called allies. Brother, listen. Listen. They got a lot of those people who got those dual citizens living in their country. They better take a position, and a strong one, and the correct one. And Brother RBD said, let's talk about how we're losing right stateside. Oh man. the reason you're losing right stateside is because of Israel. Y'all can decipher that. Y'all know. Those of you who have been here, you understand what I'm saying. We're on the verge of monetization. You can't say it out loud, but yeah, we can figure it out. You know what I'm saying? You know, just use your specialized emojis. Y'all know what I'm saying. All right, now let's get back to this article because again, time is moving. Now, she said, I question whether Nasrallah would agree to decouple from Gaza. I would only imagine there may have been some agreement for a temporary ceasefire, but only if there was a ceasefire in Gaza. Again, like I said, why not? Ms. Collins said, in any case, we must be clear that any U.S. talks about ceasefire are lies and are entirely about buying time for the Israelis to regroup to carry out this atrocity. Ms. Khaled? Hey, that's Ms. Khaled. That's what she said. I'm going to read it again. You know what I'm saying? So I don't get confused and actually act like DC said it. Ms. Khaled added, oh, wait a minute, hold up. In fact, my bad. I didn't pass down. Let's get her whole quote. This is Miss, what's her name again? Rania Khaled said, quote, I question whether Nasrallah would agree to decouple from Gaza. I would imagine there may have been some agreement for a temporary ceasefire, but only if there was also a ceasefire in Gaza. But the key issue here is that the Israelis murdered Nasrallah and continue to kill anyone who stands in the way of their genocide and territorial expansionist agenda. Ambitions, excuse me. In any case, we must be clear that any U.S. talks about ceasefires are lies and entirely about buying time for the Israelis to regroup and carry out their atrocities. Let's start right there. Again, is it reasonable for them to have that position? People being murdered, right? And everything that's going on to stop people from being murdered is just being ignored. So, what can we say, right? Now, says, meanwhile, the Israeli military warned civilians to evacuate the city of Nabatea and other communities in southern Lebanon that lie north of the United Nations declared buffer zone, signaling that it may attempt to widen a ground operation launched earlier this week against Hezbollah. Residents were told to leave Nabatea and other settlements north of the Litani River, which formed the northern edge of the zone established by the UN Security Council in 2006 after the last Israeli invasion. However, unconfirmed reports emerged that Israeli forces were bombing the escape routes that fleeing civilians would need to use. Now, again, if you have watched me before, and we have talked about before, this is a common Israeli tactic. They say, we're going to agree to allow people to seek refuge in a place. And then they wait for the people to go to the place, and then they bomb the place and they shoot the people down like dogs. We've seen this all over Gaza. The people running pillar to post, and they're being slaughtered openly before the world. And if you say anything about it, you're suddenly anti-Semitic. How in the world protesting people being brutally murdered is anti-Semitic? That's just a ridiculous concept unless you're saying brutally murdering people is part of the Jewish religion or something. You know what I'm saying? Now, to me, saying brutally murdering people is part of the Jewish religion is anti-Semitic. But saying, y'all understand what I'm saying? Am I making myself clear? Like, they literally kind of say that if you challenge them on killing people, you're being anti-Semitic, which means them killing people is part of their religion. But I would say that would be anti-Semitic, because that would be saying that these people are naturally murderers. And to me, that sounds anti-Semitic. So I don't know. You know, it's kind of confusing here, right? Now, At least 8 Israeli soldiers have already been killed in clashes with Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, where Israel has announced the start of what it describes as a limited ground incursion, but many call an invasion. You know, this is like that Orwellian doublespeak. There's no way that Russia could send troops to set foot in Alaska for a limited ground incursion and it be considered anything but an invasion. Like that's just a ridiculous concept. There's just no way in the world that can happen. So it's bad. Anyway, independent left MP Jeremy Corbyn said Israel is slaughtering thousands of people in Lebanon because it has been allowed to act with total impunity. He condemned the British government for fueling the machinery of war and demonstrating an indifference to human life that has endangered everyone. All of this was entirely avoidable if only political leaders had the willingness to uphold the universal application of international law. Look, hey man, I don't even know who Jeremy Corbyn is. I'm going to assume because his name is Jeremy Corbyn that he's of European descent. I mean, you know it's bad when Jeremy Corbyn is like, hey man, where's the international law? This is crazy. These people just can run around willy-nilly going buck wild on everybody. Right? Anyway, and as he said, this was entirely avoidable. Now, it says, without further de-escalation, unimaginable horror is on the horizon. But as we stand on the brink of a major regional war, do not forget those who lie dead in its wake. I mean, hey, all I can do is quote it, because what can you say? The Lebanese Red Cross said in Israeli strike had wounded 4 of its paramedics. Again, and killed a Lebanese army soldier as they were evacuating wounded people from the south. Let's start right here. Earlier this year, we had the clip of the world, what is it? The World Kitchen? Is it the World Kitchen, brother? You got ripped off? Chef Andres from the World Kitchen, where they bombed his people and they blew up his vehicle. And all they were trying to do was get aid to the people of Gaza. And Israel blew them up. They killed the people. Right. So this idea of Israel killing people who are trying to help people that they already have attempted to kill, this is not new. Everything that we're seeing and we're talking about here that they're talking about is happening in Lebanon is the same tactics that they were using in Gaza, which means they're intentionally killing the people who are trying to help people that they already tried to kill, so that make sure that those people will die, and then the people that are trying to help the people will die as well. This is part of their modus operandi, right? Now, it said a convoy accompanied by Lebanese troops was targeted near the village of Tabet despite coordinating its movements with UN peacekeepers. There is no immediate comment from the Israeli military. Yeah, but of course they're not going to say nothing, because as far as they're concerned, they like, y'all should know how we roll, right? Just plain and simple. On Monday night, an Israeli airstrike on a flat in central Beirut killed at least 9 people, including 7 civilian, emergency workers. Again, I stand that this is no coincidence. Israel has been pounding areas of the country where the militant group has a strong presence since late September, but has rarely struck in the heart of the capital. There was no warning before Wednesday night's attack, which hit a building not far from the city's UN headquarters, the Prime Minister's office, and the parliament. Residents reported a sulfur-like smell following the strike, and Lebanon's national news agency reported that Israel was using phosphorus bombs, which, as far as I understand, that's against international law. Human rights groups have previously accused Israel of using white phosphorus incendiary shells on towns and villages in southern Lebanon. Again, the Israeli military did not immediately respond to a request for comment, because they always do this. It did claim today to have struck around 200 Hezbollah targets across Lebanon, including weapons storage facilities and observation posts. It said the strikes killed at least 15 Hezbollah fighters. The militant group said its fighters had detonated a roadside bomb where Israeli forces entered the Lebanese border village of Maroun El Ras, killing and wounding soldiers. It was not possible to independently confirm the claims made by either side. Israel and Hezbollah have exchanged rockets since October 8th last year, and displaced some 60,000 Israelis in the north. Israel's retaliatory strikes over the past year have displaced tens of thousands of people on the other side of the border. The escalating violence in Lebanon has opened a second front in the war that began a year ago with Hamas's not so surprise attack on October 7th on southern Israel. Fears of a wider conflict have continued to mount after Iran's missile attack on Israeli military bases Tuesday. Stop right there. Here's the difference. Iran attacked military sites, including Dimona, which is allegedly the site of the nuclear weapons that Israel doesn't have but has, if you understand what I'm saying. Because no one will acknowledge that Israel has nuclear weapons publicly. And some people that have acknowledged it stop breathing. Coincidentally. Right? Now, says Israeli military spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari bragged on Wednesday that his country would respond wherever, whenever, and however we choose. Let's stop right here. If they're going to respond whenever and however they choose, that means they're going to use your taxpayer dollars to spend your money to buy weapons from the U.S. and use them however they choose, which means they could also use them in a false flag operation to get your children to go to war to be slaughtered in Iran, because they're going to use them however they choose. This ain't DC not making it up. I'm reading the article. I'm reading the quote. If the man didn't say the quote, then you know what I'm saying? But this ain't me. This is Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari. U.S. President Joe Biden has reportedly said he will not support an Israeli attack on Iran's nuclear installations. Okay, let's stop right there. Mr. Biden said he will not support it, but Mr. Hagari said he gonna do whatever you want. Now, which one do you believe? Right? Because again, the United States could have ended all of this a long time ago by simply not giving them money and weapons. But they continue to give them money and weapons seemingly every month. Right? So, anyway. Let's see. Nonetheless, former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett is one of those who are calling for a decisive strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. We must act now to destroy Iran's nuclear program, its central energy facilities, and to fatally cripple this terrorist regime. Man, talk about terrorist regimes. Anyway, Iranian Armed Forces Chief of Staff General Mohammad Bagheri warned Israel that Tuesday's operation will be repeated with much higher magnitude and we will hit all their infrastructure. The UN Security Council held an emergency meeting on Wednesday night to address the spiraling conflict. The Iranian ambassador to the UN, Amir Saeed Iravani, said his country had launched nearly 200 missiles at Israel as a deterrent to further violence, calling the action a necessary and proportionate response to Israel's continued terrorist aggressive acts over the past 2 months. He also accused Washington of complicity in Israel's crimes through its provision of weapons. Israel UN Ambassador Danny Danon claimed that time for empty calls for the wait a minute. My bad. Let me read that again. He said the time for empty calls for de-escalation is over. So he's saying it ain't no de-escalation. He called Iran's missile barrage a cold-blooded attack against 10 million civilians and an unprecedented act of aggression. All right, let's stop right there. So basically, from what I see, Israel, they say they want all the smoke and they're going to retaliate and they're going to attack their nuclear facilities, right? If we think, and I didn't load the clip of Mr. Netanyahu. If we think that Israel is going to attack their oil facilities and nuclear facilities in Iran, and Iran is not going to respond with something way worse than what they responded with, because here's the lie. They have told you that they shot down all of those missiles and that nothing happened. The reason I know that's a lie, because Iran has missiles based on Russian technology, hypersonic missiles that they cannot shoot down. Not only can the Iron Dome and David's Arrow and all that not shoot them down, but the U.S. can't shoot them down. And most of the stuff that was shot down, that like when the drone strike happened earlier, most of that was shot down by America's military, contrary to popular belief. Without America propping up Israel, there is no Israel. It's plain and simple. Right? Like that's the biggest unspoken part of this whole equation. Like we talked about before, when the Russian subs were in Cuba, and I told you that according to Scott Ritter at the time, that a hypersonic missile in Cuba could basically be in Washington, D.C. in 10 minutes, and there would be nothing they could do about it. Just, except getting under that underground bunker underneath the White House, because the White House wouldn't be there anymore. Thank you, brother. So, I mean, again, as I said before, the idea that, think about it, they're fighting tooth and nail right now with Hezbollah. That's the little brother of Iran. They've been having plenty of problems. They've leveled Gaza and still having problems with Hamas, which is the little brother. The idea of whatever their ambitions are against Iran is something that they can do by themselves is ridiculous, which means that the U.S. is just going to be dragged into it. And if you are listening and you live in America like I do, that means you, some type of way, are going to be dragged into this madness that we're currently discussing. Right? So, what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to play, because one of the things that was talked about in the article is, of course, the Iranians were talking about the evil and atrocities that Israel has done. So I'm just going to play one of the videos describing one of the things that Israel has done, because there's so many. I just said, let me just pick one and stick with that, because again, we've talked about all this before. So here we go.
Emergency workers scaled rubble inside Iran's embassy compound in Syria after a suspected bombing by Israeli warplanes on Monday. Tehran said the strike killed 7 military advisors, including 3 senior commanders. The target, according to Iranian state media, was top Revolutionary Guards commander Mohammad Reza Zahedi. He had been a senior commander in Iran's elite Quds force, the Corps' overseas arm, according to the Guards. Iran's ambassador to Syria, Hossein Akbari, said Tehran's response would be harsh. Syria's foreign minister condemned the attack. Its state media cited a military source saying Israel launched the attack from the occupied Golan Heights and that its air defense system shot down some of the missiles. The strike appeared to signal an escalation in Israel's war against Iran's regional proxies. Israel has long targeted Iranian military installations in Syria, as well as the proxies. Monday's attack marked the first time Iran's embassy compound itself had been hit. Since the attack on Israel nearly 6 months ago by Palestinian group Hamas, which is also backed by Iran, Israel has ramped up strikes in Syria against Iran's guards, as well as Hezbollah, the Tehran-backed Lebanese armed group. They both support Syria's government of President Bashar al-Assad. The White House said it was still looking into reports about the strikes, while State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said the goal is still to prevent any possible escalation of conflict.
But of course, we are always concerned about anything that would be escalatory or cause an increase in conflict in the region.
Israel typically does not comment on its attacks in Syria and declined to do so on Monday, although it also said on Monday it had stopped weapons from being smuggled into the West Bank from Iran.
Now, understand, this is they attacked Iran's embassy in Syria. You see what I'm saying? Attacking people's embassy, I know that's got to be against international law. It's just no way that's not against international law. So I just played that just as an example so people can see what type of stuff that Israel has been doing, and they just been running amok. And then you have the U.S. talking about, so yeah, man, we gotta watch out for this escalation. What's more what's more of an escalation than blowing up somebody's embassy? Now, your embassy in another country is really your sovereign territory in their country. So that's literally what's an attack on Iran, according to international law. And that's just one example. Like, there's plenty of other stuff that's been going on. So when they try to tell you that, Iran is irrational and they out of hand, and this strike, which was only against military installations, it wasn't against any civilian population. Remember, we just talked about in this article, Israel's attacking civilians. Iran is attacking military installations, right? They're not doing the same thing, but they want to make it like somehow, as Mr. Netanyahu came over here talking about civilization versus barbarism. Actually, he's right, but who's the civilization and who's the barbarism? It's not what you think, or not what the mainstream media has been telling you out here, right? So, what I want to look at real quick is, because I'm finished with this article, is a tale of the tape. Is this it? Telling the tape? Yeah, that's what I call it. It says, who holds the upper hand in comparison of military strength, right? So we're gonna go down here, and we're just gonna look at the raw numbers. We don't even care about any of the other stuff that they're really talking about. We just want the numbers. All right. So, personnel strength. Iran active military personnel 610,000. Reserve personnel 350,000. Paramilitary forces 220,000. Total personnel 1.18 million. Israel active military 170,000. Reserve personnel 465,000. Paramilitary forces 35,000. Total personnel 670,000. So that's 2-1 for Iran. Now, mind you, they also have a 10-1 ratio as far as population. Let's see. Oops, hold on. Now, air power. Israel 612 fighter jets. Iran 551 fighter jets. As they state here, Iran has overall a larger number of aircraft, but Israel's Air Force is technologically superior. This part is true, and including the F-35 stealth fighters. So they have the technological edge. Why does Israel have the technological edge? Oh, we know why. Because United States. That's why Israel has the technological edge. Here's the part of the equation that isn't being talked about. The belief in the West is that Iran is limited to archaic technology. But let's refresh our memories here. Who's Iran's basically their number one ally militarily? It's Russia. Who's Russia's ally? China. Who's the number one manufacturer in the world? China. Do we really think Iran can't get more weapons and things manufactured for them by China? Like, no, again, I haven't heard anybody talk about this part. Do we think that they can't get more? Remember, they got hypersonic missiles. So hypersonic missiles, the technology came from Russia, right? Without a doubt. So do we think that they can't get a few MiGs or whatever Russia's latest model of aircraft is from Russia? I do. So we ain't gonna talk about that. Right? Like, we don't think that. Like, these are allies. They're on the same side, not just economically, but militarily. We talked about it earlier. They plans to sign treaties to protect each other. Russia and China, Russia and Iran. They're trying to counterbalance NATO. They're in those discussions now. Which, if that's the case, then suddenly an attack on Iran becomes an attack on Russia. And Russia already said that an attack by Ukraine with weapons from the West means that the West is attacking Russia and they will respond in kind. This is insanity. Leave these people alone. But I digress. Let me just go. All right. So, land forces. Israel tanks 1,370. Armored personnel vehicles 43,407. Self-propelled artillery units 650. Iran tanks nearly 2,000. I mean, they can just go ahead and manufacture 4 tanks. So buy 4 tanks from Russia and get up to 2,000. Armored vehicles 65,765. Rocket artillery systems 775. And they've been using them things. Like, they might have to get some more because they've been putting those things to use. One thing we know about their rockets, they work. Now, Iran outnumbers Israel in tanks and armored vehicles, but lacks the same level of modernization and training that Israeli forces benefit from. Israel tanks are often considered superior in terms of technology and battlefield effectiveness. Now, let me stop right here. That could be true. I don't know, right? I'm not a military expert. But part of Israel's psychological warfare is always claiming that they have superior technology. But when it comes to the actual fighting, yeah, they have air superior technology over Gaza and over Hamas. But we haven't actually seen Israel by themselves go toe-to-toe with an equal state. We just haven't seen it. I'm not doubting them. I know Israel has tremendous technology. They're on the cutting edge of technology in a lot of ways. But I'm just saying, it's one of those times, you ever looked at a sporting event and they tell you a team is the favorite, but you've been watching the other team play and you're like, the other team is not as bad as y'all trying to make out. This is not going to be one of those easy games. And that's how I look at this conflict. idea that Israel just is superior in every way, shape, or form, how they trying to say it. I don't know about that part. Anyway, Israel naval capabilities: frigates 0, submarines 5, corvettes 7, patrol vessels 45. Iran 7 frigates, 3 submarines. Which I don't even think about Iran having submarines, so I'm kind of like, okay. 19 patrol vessels and 1 mine warfare vessel. While Iran has a larger naval presence in terms of frigates and patrol vessels, Israel naval capabilities are enhanced through advanced technology and support from Western allies. What does that mean? That means that Israel has access to America's Navy. That's all that means, right? That's a flowery language to say America's Navy is Israel's Navy. That's what that means. Now, let's see. It says technological advancement and economic factors. Population: Iran 90 million, Israel 10 million. We talked about the active military personnel: 610,000 to 170,000. Right? Now we went through all the other numbers with aircraft, submarines, so forth, so on. It says, although Iran possesses a numerical advantage in personnel and ground capabilities, Israel retains both a significant technological advantage in air power and strategic alliance, which, of course, doesn't account for the fact of Russia and China backing up Iran. That's what's missing in this analysis. It says also, it is the specific nature of engagement, focusing on either quantity or quality, that will heavily affect any hostilities. Regional allies such as Hezbollah might well deepen this balance of power between the two states even further. Well, we already know that. That's why Israel decided to attack Hezbollah first, before trying to get into it with Iran. Right? So that is the balance of power discussion, or tail of the table, as I like to say. Now let's see. What else? I wanted to just show a little bit about this ground invasion already taking place. It says Israel begins ground invasion of Lebanon to take out Hezbollah outposts. I don't know why. Okay, I'm like, I don't know why this shoot advertisement is taking over the page. It says Israel has begun invasion of southern Lebanon as an IDF announced early Tuesday that troops were carrying out limited raids aimed at wiping out Hezbollah outposts, the latest stage of the Jewish state's offensive against Iranian-backed quote-unquote terrorist group. The boots on the ground operation will see Israeli soldiers take out Hezbollah tunnels, rocket launchers, and weapons caches along the southern border, all in an attempt to halt the U.S. designated terrorist group's ability to launch daily attacks over the border, Israel officials have said. The widely expected ground incursion came after Israel mobilized its tanks and troops and secured a wide stretch of the northern border on Monday. In accordance with the decision of the political echelon a few hours ago, the IDF began limited, localized, and targeted ground raids based on precise intelligence against Hezbollah terrorist targets and infrastructure in southern Lebanon, the Israeli military said in its statement announcing the ground operation. These targets are located in villages close to the border and pose an immediate threat to Israeli communities in northern Israel. The IDF also deployed Air Force and artillery units to support troops on the ground. These operations were approved and carried out in accordance with the decision of the political echelon, according to the IDF. Just before that operation began, the Lebanese army withdrew, according to reports, leaving the already battered Hezbollah alone to face the IDF. Israel said the primary goal of its operations against Hezbollah is to halt the daily rocket and missile attacks on northern Israel. Now, let's see. Is it? Yep, here we go. So they went there, and now we see what happened. What happened was 8 people were killed. I'm not laughing at the people's demise, because that would be insensitive. What I'm saying is, number one, Israel doesn't like to admit these types of things. So if there are 8 people killed, there were probably more than 8 people killed. That's one. And then 2, again, like I said, the idea that these people are invincible is demonstrably false. Now, what I want to do, because I'm going to get ready to close this out, because it is almost 10 o'clock. I want to go back to our map. And I want to zoom out on the map. I guess this is far out, zoom out as I get. Here's what I want to show, or want to talk about on the map. We don't see it, but because Israel is an ally of the United States, that means that all of these countries, in essence, up here, Europe, are aligned with Israel through the United States. So they're aligned with Israel where they want to be or not. That means all of those people, all these countries, NATO, are on Israel's side. And including here, Ukraine, which is fighting against Russia right now as we speak. But that means that this country, Iran, Israel, Syria, half of Iraq, and China, and possibly India, and maybe Turkey, are also, they're all on the side of Iran. Here's the fundamental problem of how this can get out of hand. Here's what we know for a fact. Israel has nuclear weapons and had threatened to use them. Some of these countries here in NATO have nuclear weapons. Iran does not have nuclear weapons, and since they don't have them, they haven't threatened to use them against anyone. But Russia has the most nuclear weapons in the world. China, which is aligned with Russia, is 3rd in nuclear weapons. If Israel is losing a war against Iran, they have said they're going to use nuclear weapons. If Israel uses nuclear weapons, Mr. Putin has said that he will use nuclear weapons. And of course, the US will be forced to respond. Right? And then, of course, China will respond because, why not? They have to try to protect themselves, because they have to assume that if the US is firing at Russia, they're also firing at China. Which means disaster for everyone, even though we don't even have a dog in the fight. Right? So I just wanted to lay that out, because these treaties and these alliances means that all of these different groups that do have nuclear weapons could be drawn in, and it could be a global catastrophe. Right? So before I close out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a video which has the scenario play out of what a nuclear war, the different scenarios of a nuclear war will look like. And I'm just going to let that play so we can get a little bit of understanding of how completely off the rails and how wrong this whole thing could go. So y'all know how we do. Pause the music. Load the clip. And here we go. Now, I just wanted people to see how completely out of hand this thing can get. Pretty much can lead to the point where there is no northern hemisphere. And even in that scenario, they're leaving out some weapons technologies that Russia has that could just completely overwhelm the East Coast without hitting it above ground using water. I'm sure that some of those weapons are also targeted for places in Africa where the U.S. had military bases. And Australia wasn't included in that scenario for reasons that I don't understand. I just want people to understand the seriousness of what we're dealing with here. No one is really putting it on the table that I've seen. Okay, that didn't deal with, that's just the first hour. It didn't deal with the nuclear winter, the radiation fallout, the loss of livestock and anything to eat, the changing of the weather, the possible knocking of the U.S., the world off its axis. Like, we don't know. We don't know how bad it could get. But I don't want to find out. There's nothing good or beneficial about it. Right? So when we talk about voting and all that, one thing we don't ask is, are you in favor of avoiding World War III at all costs? Like, I haven't heard that question being asked. Like, if I missed it, somebody let me know. So I think in these type of times, this is an intelligent question to ask. It's very important. So with that, brothers and sisters, I thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Again, you can follow me on Instagram at dc.radical1, on Twitter at dcradical_ONE, on OTW2, which is a Black-owned free speech platform at DC Radical 1. If you found this information of value, you can donate via Cash App at $DC Radical 1. And you can email me at dc.radical_1 at protonmail.com. And, you know, I just want us to think about these things and think about what we can do to avoid them. Right? So I plan to come on tomorrow for SBL talk. I'm not sure what the subject matter is, but look out for the notifications there for the new subscribers and the new people who have checked into the program. I thank you for subscribing. I thank you all for listening. With that, I say a BB for ODA and straight black pride. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also follow us on our other social media platforms. On Instagram, we're at dc.radical1. On Twitter, we're at dc_radical_ONE. And the Cash App is $DC Radical 1. Again, thank you for subscribing. A BB for ODA and straight black pride.